9/11. Seems like so long ago. I was only 3 then. Now I'm 13. It was an unsuspected event. 4 planes crashed into the two World Trade buildings, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and a small town in Pennsylvania. I haven't seen these events up close or heard about it or was to remember, but my mother is. This is her story. How old were you at the time of 9/11?
When 9/11 occurred, I was 25 years old. 25 years old.
Where did you live at the time of 9/11?
Actually, we lived in Baltimore County, and you went to a little daycare not far from our apartment, and your brother more elementary school.
What was your first reaction to 9/11?
Really, I didn't really think that much about it. When I first saw news of the event, I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know how serious it was. I was a student at Morgan State University, and I was having something to eat in the cantina, and I saw some people like kind of getting frantic, and it started to make me feel a little anxious, but at first I was like, what is this? You know, I didn't really know what was going on. So my first reaction was just kind of like, what is happening? Is this real? And how did this happen? Is it just a fire, or was it some sort of explosion? I didn't really know what was going on.
Who was president then?
At the time of 9/11, the president was George W. Bush. Yeah.
Do you think he was good, suitable to be president at that time and for that crisis?
Whether he was suitable or not, I mean, it is what it is. He was the president. Do I think he handled the situation well? I think he could have handled it a lot better. Clearly, he was very confused. In the footage that I saw where he was reading to a group of young people, I believe in Florida, and when the member of the Secret Service came in to tell him what had happened in New York, he was very confused. I mean, he's kind of looking around like this, and he at first continues to read to them, and then I guess when he realized the serious nature of this attack, he finally decided to cut his visit with those students short. In short, I think that he was basically just as confused as I was about this situation, it seems. And so I do feel that he could have handled it better, but who else would have handled it? He's the president, and that's his responsibility. So I guess he was as prepared as anyone could have been for that situation.
Mm-hmm. What was society in America like around the time?
Well, I think that Americans felt pretty safe and pretty secure here in the United States. There hadn't been any conflicts on American soil since, the Civil War. So, basically, there was no need for any kind of fear of any sort of attacks or anything, so we felt pretty confident that we were safe here. And so we were really taken by surprise when these attacks occurred. We really thought we were impenetrable. we felt that nothing could really happen to us, that we were a world power that was really untouchable. And so for those reasons, again, we felt safe. We didn't have a reason to feel that anyone would take these measures to attack our great nation. So I think there was some overconfidence there, and almost a false sense of security and safety.
Where did 9/11 take place?
Well, as I said, 9/11 occurred, well, there was different areas of attack. Two planes were hijacked and were pummeled into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in New York City in the Wall Street district, which we all know is definitely was definitely to make a huge statement and to basically attack physically and financially our nation. Then there also was an attack on the Pentagon, a plane which unfortunately had many young people on it who were traveling by that plane plummeted into the Pentagon, which was an attack again against our nation's citizens, as well as the Pentagon, which, is a symbol of our nation's defense and security. And then there was a small town in Pennsylvania that crashed into an open field, a rural area, and that attack, they say, was headed for somewhere, but for some reason it didn't make it there. I think some people on the plane tried to regain control, and so the plane just kind of went down and crashed there in Pennsylvania.
Was anyone near the 9/11 strikes?
No. Personally, I didn't know of anyone that, suffered any injuries or fatalities. However, I do have an aunt, my mom's sister. We were very fearful for her life because she actually worked at the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C., and occasionally would work over at the Pentagon. But thankfully, she was not working at that location on that, devastating day. However, we couldn't reach her because all the cell phone signals were crossed and people couldn't get phone calls in and out. And we were really nervous because we didn't hear from her for a few hours after the attacks. But finally, my mom did hear from her younger sister, my aunt, and we learned that she was fine. But no, personally, I didn't know of anyone that was injured or killed during these attacks. My heart does go out to those individuals who did lose loved ones as a result of this attack, or people whose lives was forever changed because of injuries due to the attacks.
What was the government like around the time of 9/11?
I mean, government was government. I mean, I wasn't too thrilled that Bush was president. However, there's a process, a democratic process, and he was elected as the president, and so people were still a little upset about that, and the fact that he didn't seem to handle this situation well and react and respond in a fast and decisive way made that those feelings of anger and resentment for him being president a little bit worse, a lot worse for many people. But government is government. The economy was kind of coming off of Clinton's era where there was a surplus in the economy, so we weren't really feeling the recession at that time. But 9/11 definitely caused major. But as far as government goes, I mean, it is what it was. What it was.
Do you think society has gotten worse or improved from 9/11?
Well, that would depend on what facets of society you're speaking of. I mean, as far as security goes, we've definitely stepped up our security, along the borders and at airports and other means of transportation, just because because of the nature of the attacks, we want to make sure that travelers are safe. And so we have these different codes as far as like code red, code orange, so on and so forth, to warn people during times where attacks may be more likely to occur, I guess. However, in a way that I feel that society has declined is that there's a lot more profiling nowadays. I think that people, when they're traveling and they see a Muslim individual who is dressed in hijab or they're covered, people tend to get very nervous and feel that, oh, this person may be a terrorist. And there are people that are discriminated against because of their religion or who they appear to be, and now every time someone may see a Muslim, they may automatically assume they're a terrorist. And I know after 9/11, a lot of Muslim Americans Islamic Americans were profiled. They were religiously profiled, and under the Patriot Act, they were targeted as terrorists or part of this regime of individuals who attacked our nation. And it was almost like, oh, let's go get the Muslims because, they're the cause for these attacks. There are extremists in every sort of religion, racial group, or what have you. There's extremists in every group. I mean, after Reconstruction, the KKK were a terrorist group that terrorized blacks who were freed and terrorized their lives to prevent them from voting and prevent them from partaking in their citizen rights. So I thought it was unfair that society sort of labeled Islamic Americans after 9/11 as being terrorists. Now, and it hasn't really changed much. 11 years later, it hasn't really changed that much at all. And I think that part of society is really sad. However, financially, society, I don't think, has recovered. I mean, clearly there are huge financial problems. There's, a couple of wars that have occurred. And even though troops have been pulled from Iraq, who knows whether true democracy will really ever occur there. And then you've got Afghanistan, and there's other civil issues around the world that are in direct correlation with the events that happened in 9/11. So this society, both nationally and globally, has a lot of work to do. But society will always have problems as long as there are human beings. There will be issues because human beings are imperfect. So, that's my take on that.
Thank you for that wonderful speech. So that was my mom, Takesha Webb, sharing her knowledge and experience of 9/11. I'm Darnell Logan, and this is my OHP project for Miss Virago. Thank you and goodbye.